Hello and welcome to What's on Your Shelf. I am your host, Mulure Mike, and today we are recording a special edition. We are recording at the Kenya National Library Service in Upper Hill. And with me today is an amazing woman who has just launched her second book. You get to know her in a bit. But before we get into that place, have you taken a chance to look at the Kenya National Library Service facilities? This is a national library that offers spaces and opportunities for people to equip themselves with knowledge and information. One of the things that I've loved about this one is that they have a special kids section. So you can come with your children, you can hang out, try it out, check it out. But today, we want to talk about two amazing books. And allow me to introduce to you my guest today. And this is none other than Wanjiru Kaburu.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's indeed an honor to be in this platform, sharing in this podcast of What's on Your Shelf. And I hope that after this conversation, some of your listeners will be saying these two books are now on their shelves. Thank you for having me.
How would you describe or define healing? What is healing to you?
Healing. I wouldn't define it with uncertain terms, but using my own experience, I would say healing is just like, you see, the way in addiction we talk about recovering. Healing is the same. And just the same way, recovering starts with the recognition and the acceptance and the willingness to go through the process, in this case, the healing journey and rehabilitation now when we talk of addiction is the same way I would say healing works. I would say healing is a journey that is continuous. But there is a stage you get to know that you're at a higher level. You can say you are healed, but don't lie to yourself lest you sleep. It's when you start hearing things that would hurt you. For instance, I've had experiences where someone would comfortably call you a devil, unworthy, not enough, look at you. Those things, if you said them to me 10 years, 5 years ago, I crash. Because somehow they are enshrined in me. I haven't gotten out of myself to actually know I am not those things. So it's an affirmation to the negative. And healing is when you get to a place where those things are said and you look at these people straight on their face and you're like, are you okay? Yeah. In that moment, you actually want to help the other person heal. Because for people to say such mean things to other people, there's something also that is right there. So that's how I would say healing has worked for me. I still will feel some type of way when it comes to the sensitive things I've gone through. When I hear them or I see us, I still have that sensitivity. But now I have the courage to face them, talk about them, help people go through them, help people even in the healing journey, because I took that journey myself.
Yeah. We're going to talk about your two books. We're going to talk more about the book you've launched today. But I think when I saw your first book, when I went through it, it's a very simple book. Actually, 4 chapters. And I can see growth. I can see there's something different. Where did it begin? How did Wanjiru Kaburu decide that I want to author a book?
That journey began with just telling myself that enough is enough. A lot of people find it a very interesting title, The Power of Selflove. And yes, it's interesting and it's powerful. But I started that journey when I looked back at my life and decisions that I made or different kind of scenarios that led me to different places. I went back and reconnected with how I felt through each and every experience that I've gone through. And what I realized was amiss was how I feel about myself. Something that was not new, but something I felt at that point I needed to face. And a lot of times you've heard people talk about journaling and all that kind of thing, that when you write things down, it's somehow a way of therapy and a way of facing them. So if when you read even somewhere within those pages, you see something like, or when I talk about it, I say, I wrote it for myself more than anyone else. It's a gift that it has touched so many other people's lives. So that journey began when I said, no, it's no longer external. I can no longer rely on the external love that maybe is there or is not, or I'm just not able to receive it because first, I have not truly loved myself. And that is why I went out there and wrote that book.
Self-love sometimes is interpreted as selfishness. Mm-hmm. Did you debate that topic? Did you debate that title when you're picking it for your book?
Yes, I did, and I almost self-sabotaged. I almost never published that book.
Wow.
Because there is that notion, and then to add salt to injury, I've given that book the theme, behind every successful person is themselves.
Yes.
How full of myself, right? Yeah, someone might say that. But whether you like it or not, you are your powerhouse and the world's powerhouse. And until you can actually love yourself, you don't know how to love anyone. So for people who would say that self-love could be selfish, I would tell them to really try the genuine self-love. Because let me tell you what, ever since I deliberately went through the journey of loving myself, it is the time I've learned to show up in the world even more powerfully. Case in point, when you take time to know, love yourself, forgive, commit to yourself, which are the 4 chapters of the book, you mentioned there are 4 chapters, you start realizing that just as you are imperfect, someone else is. Just as you have gone through pain, someone else has. Just as you are this person who feels so broken and worthless, someone else could have done or gone through same things or worse than you have that are making them even feel worse. So what this does is, as you extend kindness to yourself, because that's one thing I've really had to learn through the self-love journey, to extend kindness, to be more kind to myself. In the process, I've learned to show more kindness to the people. I've learned to pause and ask, wait a minute, why did Mike say that to me? Maybe right here is my opportunity to help Mike become even more whole. And that whole journey has really helped me where I work, people I work with, in even my family. I'm the easy now person to look at the real issues and talk them out. And really, when you really, truly go through the self-love journey, it outpours that same love. Even in marital kind of love, romantic, you are able to give and receive love in a more, let me say, fulfilling, peaceful place, not feeling like you have anything to prove, and feeling that really you can receive this love because already you've chosen yourself. Yeah. It's no longer external. Yes.
In your first book, The Power of Self-Love, I want to get slightly deeper into it. You've put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. And just from the forward, when I picked this book, when I went through the forward, I saw things that now pushes you to want to read even more. Mm. There is a part where the person who's done your forward, Dr. Stanley Mwenda, who says, Wanjiru's high school principal called her devil. she went ahead and became that, a devil to mediocrity and complacency, devil to inattention, devil to naysayers who crossed her line, but an angel to herself, to those who understand her, to those who depend on her counsel. The definition of devil, for me, was the very strong part of that statement. Was it how you looked at yourself? Was it how somebody referred to you? Was it what made you look at it from a devil's perspective?
I looked at it that way because that's what happened. Part of the things that have crushed me over time is how we tend to look at someone and just refer to them as something. That name was called to me when I was in high school by my principal then. And it came from a place of comparison. I've always been, energetic, I show up, I'm just bubbly, and over time, I don't know where the society gets us and those starts looking like bad things. And I was the same throughout high school. So those people, when they come, the first suspect who is in the wrong is Mike, just because Mike is outgoing, just because Mike. So my principal actually called me a devil to compare with an experience she had with my other sister, who has always been the quiet one and very, even at home and that kind of a thing. And that drove me. That was the last nail in the coffin towards me attempting suicide. Because if you read further, you'll see things like, why should a devil exist among humans? And it was in a very sensitive place where, as I said, I didn't feel loved. Today, when we have these conversations, even with my siblings, my parents, we try to really clarify, wait a minute, we're not saying you didn't love. Our family is full of love. But how we receive love and feel love as children growing in the same environment, or our parents would think they're giving love to their children, could be in their perspective. And this child would actually might be deprived of the same love that you think you are giving to them. So I was coming from that background. Now going to a school and hearing someone who is supposed to be your guide, and she was a mother herself, say that straight up without blinking on my face, sort of affirms how terrible you are. So when you're in a very precarious place in the first place, you just tip over. There is no need and sense in the living anymore. So I refer to it because it's not a figure of speech. It's actually that. And we have called people names, even in their house in the house setup, an older sibling to the other, a parent to the other. And we say it, we move on with life. I would really love us to address what we tell people, the words we use to people, because I survived the suicide, right?
Yeah.
I have lived it. I have owned the journey. I've garnered the courage to love myself, to put it out there as a tool, and to progressively be conscious about telling people you are the greatest thing that has ever happened, and in your unique ways, you are a gift. Look for that, connect with that. It doesn't matter what else the world says. Imagine the cases that have not gotten there. Depressed, successful suicide, people just in drugs to cope, and that's the life.
You say something that I find very important, that I don't think most of the time we look at it like that love is not what somebody has given to you. Love is how you felt it. And sometimes, especially in a home setup, there is a blanket love that is offered to everyone. We've paid your school fees, you've clothed you, you've done this. But every child interprets that differently, if that is what I'm hearing you say. And there are serious things you've opened up in this book, and I'm not going to spoil it. I promise. There's somewhere here where I won't say the context so that you go and read it. When you read the story of her life, your feeling will be torn between anger towards the perpetrators and pity for the victim. Wanjiru Kaburu will rather you feel neither. You know what I'm referring to.
Yes.
Why would you rather somebody feels neither?
I would rather you feel neither because you won't do anything about it. The power that now you have is, if it has happened to you, is you step back and accept that moment for what it is. Because it's a wrecking moment. And you've mentioned growth. Without again spoiling it, I address it again in the second book because it's a conversation that we need to take seriously.
Yeah.
Because what happens to a victim after that moment wrecks their life. And if you're not careful to notice it for what it is, then you live a very empty life, unfulfilling, and you see someone has become so successful. You see this woman, you read them in news, they are very successful people, but they're very empty. They still feel so worthless. They are in marriages where they don't feel loved. They have engagements and they're not present because something so precious was taken away from them and they don't know how to deal with it. But the only way is through it. Go back, you feel that pain once again, and then we go back to the referencing of forgiving. First start by forgiving yourself. It was not your fault that it happened to you. Because it keeps happening and the victims don't address it, don't talk about it. Because you are in a setup where you'll be asked, where were you going? What were you doing? How will you be able to deal with the actual occurrence versus the judgment? Most people rather not. So I wouldn't want anyone to dive or to dwell in self-pity. I would rather someone acknowledges the moment for what it was for them, tries to go through the steps and the missteps that one occurrence has made them go about in their life, and arrest through a decision, a powerful decision. For me, I thought I dealt with it, but therapy helped over time. When I finally did therapy, it was really, because what happens later, people come to your life in the name of love, but they use you, and you allow yourself to be used because you were used, and you never healed from that moment. So the rest of your life, you get used, and you tend to be okay with it, which is very dangerous.
Yeah. I want to talk about two things before I transition to your second book. Know yourself. It's the first chapter of this book. What are you bringing out? What is the thought behind one knowing themselves?
The thought behind it is because we've been told so many stories and so many definitions. So which one will you believe? When X says you're this, Y says you're this, Z says you're this, which version are you supposed to go with? So for me, that chapter is a clarion call to connect with ourselves. If we are silent, we take a moment of solitude, silence, and go deep down to the child in us. The things we love doing, the things that gave us a thrill. These are things that are who you are. And even as you grow into this mature person, a mother, a father, a responsible person in the society, those things still matter. But the minute you let everything else now that has been said to you or has been defined as you take the center stage, then you lose out in giving out exactly what should have been nurtured within you as who you are. And that ends up not being, you don't live a purposeful life when you live like that, because that very purpose you're meant to serve requires every bit of what has been put in you to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've spoken about forgiving yourself. How do you start forgiving yourself? How do you get to that place?
That's a tough question. It's the toughest thing I've ever had to do, forgiving myself. And I started facing it. I'm Catholic. And there's a catechism around confession. And I used to go to confession a lot. And one time I just told a priest friend of mine, I don't feel like God is forgiving me through all these confessions that I'm doing, so why do it? And this priest told me, now the biggest mistake you're making, bigger than what you're going to confess, is not believing that. That you're going through these and you're just doing it, but you're not believing it's working. You're not believing that God is actually forgiving you or giving you a way to just pass through. And the reflection of that made me realize how it's been, let me call it a ripple effect, to get to a point where I don't forgive myself. I put myself at the center stage of everything that has gone wrong. It goes back to experiences. So you start forgiving yourself when you acknowledge that it wasn't about you. You start forgiving yourself when you realize you're only human. You can make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. Growing up, part of growing up is making the mistakes. Then learning from them now is a whole other subject on its own. But the minute you realize you are only human and you start applying a high level of kindness to yourself, then you realize that forgiving yourself is a tool to let go of a lot of bitterness. Bitterness is one of the greatest fruits of people who have not forgiven themselves. You are so bitter because you carry all these around yourself, and you see someone and you want to just shoot them in the head, and you're never a happy person. No matter what you achieve, no matter what you do, it's always lacking. So you're only human, a perfectly imperfect human being. So show yourself some kindness.
Do you think sometimes that also falls or is thought to as an excuse, where is your easy way out when you can't seem to grasp a way forward with something and you want to let go? You console yourself and say, I'm only human. At what point do you look at it as a process towards healing and not an excuse?
When you're honest with yourself. I keep saying you can lie your way around so many things, but Mike, you can never lie to yourself and get away with it. Maybe you can lie to yourself, but it catches up with you. And that is why I'll take you back to the conversation of when I said, when you truly, deeply love yourself, this forgiving is coming from a place where you have truly connected with yourself and chosen to be better. When you love yourself, there's something magical that is not just about you anymore. It's about seeing a better outcome, if I can put it that way, a better outcome for yourself, a better outcome for people, a better outcome. And even as you transition to the other book, that's why I say, love yourself enough to take your power back. So anyone using it as an excuse, we do that a lot, but to what end? It catches up with you, and then at the end of the day, you start feeling that emptiness, and lie just falls on you. And what happens in most cases now, people start going to self-medicate. This is how these things come about. You can't face yourself anymore. You've lived a lie, you've lied to people, you've lied to yourself, and now there is no more lie that you can tell yourself. You are at the edge. That's how depression kicks in. That's how people snap. That's how people get into habits that just feed or cover exactly what it is they're supposed to deal with. And before they know it, they are so long gone. So excuse, fine. But I promise you, and I advise that please, it's not worth it. It only gets you deeper into the ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've introduced us to your second book, Take Your Power Back. Tell us about Take Your Power Back.
Take Your Power Back. When you look at this cover of this book, there are a lot of words there.
Yeah.
Addiction, spirituality, worthiness, love, but honor, trauma, allness. But there is one screaming word there, healing. Take Your Power Back is literally a tool or a challenge for us to face the realities as they are. I talk about topics that my forward writer Karen Derry referred to as courageously talks about taboo topics. Sex, rape, love in a very different way. There's how we've been introduced to love now outside even family and this kind of love where we talk about romantic love. And I found myself loving or showing love in ways that have just ended up hurting me and hurting the other people. And the reason is because after a horrible experience, what came to me in form of help looked like love. And Mike, that's what I took love to be. You helping me, you saving me, you love me. So whatever you need, I'm up for your taking. And I had to go back. The reason I've called this book Take Your Power Back is because there is a moment that robbed you of what you were created to be. It made you start self-doubting yourself, hence self-sabotaging. It got you to start looking at yourself as not worthy. It led you to start looking at honor as a very strange subject to you. It makes you cringe when you even think of the possibilities of success, because who are you to succeed? I call it Take Your Power Back, and I talk about embracing vulnerability and the power that comes with it, because it's until Mike we are able to call a spade and not a big spoon that we can truly take our power back. It's until we pinpoint where did the rain start beating me. Because everyone has it in them. If they lost it somewhere. So when you take that, your approach to life, to love, to family, to even actual issues in life, to the addictions you found yourself in, really shifts. Because now you're not looking at it from a point where you are this small. You're looking at it from a place of power. You're making decisions from a place of power, not fear. You're making decisions from a place of, you know what, I know this happened, but you are beyond this moment. So you go back there and pick yourself up. And that is what really inspired Take Your Power Back.
You know, when people talk about power, it's always almost look like advantage over others or people or circumstances. And when you're taking it back, it means you had it, you lost it. What if you never even knew if you had it? What if you never even found yourself in a space where you thought you have it?
Well, it's time you know you've always had it. That's what I would tell someone who thinks that. That you have always had that power. You might have been exposed to an environment that never made you feel like you did. You might have gone through experiences that made you've never even known the difference. So you just live. A day comes, goes, you sleep, you wake up. You've never connected with the fiber of what makes you. Because, Mike, what you are and what I am are totally different things. But then again, it's what brings about the beauty of life.
Yeah.
So what I would say, and this is a point of concern, is let's normalize bringing kids up, telling them, you look so beautiful. Hey, champ. The things that we just go about life and pay school fees, as you mentioned, and just go about life. I'm so busy trying to fend for my family. And you forget the small things of, I would say, provoking the value in the person. Because I'm Christian, allow me to reference to this, I'm a spiritual person. God did not create anyone who he did not give power to choose. That the one thing God gave all of us is power to choose. And then God said, you're beautifully and wonderfully made. Everything he made was good. So if we were to go back to our basics, that's one thing we should never let be robbed. But again, I tell a story here of the wolf. Which wolf wins? The wolf you feed. So have we created an environment right from our homes, then schools, then even the church, where the wolf that is fed is the wolf that is demeaning? So a kid comes into a world, and right the world that they first interact with, being family, they haven't had these things. Love is a strange concept. Again, you said, do you feel it? We assume we love, but have you ever held your child and tell them, hey, I love you? Have you ever tried to look at your child and not think it, but say it, how great you know they are? Have you ever connected with your peers and have the conversation of, hey, how are you feeling? A lot of us, hi, hello, I'm good, sasa fiti. It's a very common. And right over time, every day we sit on the real things we need to deal with. We sit on the innate, let me call it innate power that should have been nurtured, either subconsciously or experiences that kept stamping. And before you know it, you can't feel the power anymore. You just exist. So, hey, good morning. You just wake up from your sleep and realize, no, this power has been there all along. Yeah, you just have to say enough is enough and pay attention to what the wolf that you feed, to what. You mute the noise and listen. Just listen deeply, and you will find that power seated right there. It's been there all along, Mike.
And for you who is following this conversation today, I don't know what you're hearing. Take your power back. Can you acknowledge, can you trace back where you lost it? Because I think one thing that this conversation is supposed to help us do is to find ourselves. Where did you lose it? How did you lose it? Are you able to trace back and just collect those pieces together? Because right now, Wanjiru, we are going through a season of, there's a height of cases of mental health, and people we seem to have lost it because you don't even know what you want to deal with. Is it your past, your present? Do you want to worry about your future? Because if all of them are put together, most of the people just are almost blacking out. But today, I like it that you've chosen to share your life. And guys, I'm tempted so much to share so many things about her life that I'm not going to do that because it's going to spoil it. But she's laid bare her life, especially in her first book where she's spoken about the things she's gone through. But Wanjiru, I want to journey with you to the second book. How did the second book come by? What is it that you felt after your first book that made you realize that now I want to put together something else?
Last year was tough. 2022, the year 2022 was tough. I like to say that it was like a reawakening of my brokenness. And I say it broke me open to take my power back. And this title was born from a very dark place. Last year I took to alcohol so hard. Partying what? And kid you not, I still am this lover of, I love music. One of my ways of therapy is good music and a good dance. I really want to dance until I can't anymore. But it caught me that no, this is no longer the fun drinking. And then irresponsible sex. And I was there asking myself, what exactly is going on? In the moments of soberness, I would ask. But before I know it, it's another day in the same dungeon. Yeah. And that there is a pattern of something, of the world, of the universe trying to tell you something is amiss. And what I realized is that in that same year, things were tough for me at work, financially, love life. And I went back to a moment where it felt like, none of these matters. So, and that moment reminded me, Wanjiru, aren't you the self-love, ambassador? What is this you're doing to yourself? I felt so empty, and some words said to me, or some description given about me just spoke to me, and like, you are at the center of it. If you just don't get out of it, you are going to drown. Because this is what I was calling self-medication. And it is last year that I finally actually went for therapy. I write, I speak, I've written self-love, I've said, I've spoken quite about a few deep things that are a source of my trauma and pain. So I'm like, hey, I'm good. But when such things happen, you then realize, no, there's a layer. There's a level you still need to go. So finally stepping into therapy and facing one of the most traumatic experiences that have ever happened to me, revisiting, crying over it, crashing, and just telling God, you know what, I need change, I'm open, is the minute I also opened up a certain realm of spirituality, whereby you really want to be one with the universe such that nothing bad that happened is going to be a result or a reason why bad things keep happening. It needs to serve the purpose it was meant to serve. So that was the awakening, really, of me wanting to again revisit my life and put it out again through this second book, because I feel like people relate with actual things. Because Mike, I'll tell you, like the very first messages I got from the early adopters, people who picked up this book before we've even launched today, was, oh girl, how? I have sat on this because I don't want to face it. I don't know how you did it. And that right there is the problem. I think we need to face it. Yes.
Chapter 7, Lost at 30. I won't say that I was surprised when I looked at when you turned 30. Her birthday is the 3rd of July. I won't tell you the year because you won't believe it. You won't believe it. This is when you turned 30? Mm-hmm. What are you doing to yourself? How have you managed to get this young?
Well, thank you. A baby girl will take that as a compliment. Well, I'm largely deliberate about a few things. I am generally not a high appetite person, and somehow I end up skewed to a lot of fruits, vegetables, what. But I also developed a liking for working out that I really feel kept me alive. And guess what? All these are results of self-love. It's just a journey of like, how do you want to feel? Feel nice, look nice, what? I'm not keen on some certain aspects, but I'm very keen on the impact of wellness, the general wellness of mind, body, spirit. So if I read mind, I'm working out, works on my physical. I'm a spiritual person, keeps me, you have to really have what is grounding you. So all those things have really worked. But maybe we could just say it's good genes. Have you seen my mom and dad? I think you've met them
I've
today.
seen your mom and
How old
dad.
did you say they are?
Now, when I looked at this,
No, forget that. When you look at that, you'll be biased. So how old did you say my mom and dad are?
I don't know. They don't look their age, honestly. Because judging by what you say when you turned 30, I can't place what their age is. But I don't want this to distract me but I had to note that it was really important to say that when you look at that, you'll be surprised when you see her face when you look at the year she turned 30. But what was so important with you turning 30? What is that thing? Because you've spoken fondly about it, because when you say, when I was turning 30, a friend asked me if I was feeling the pressure or the spirit. At 30, things change. Most of the time, 30 has always been put as a mark of seriousness. How was your 30?
That right there is why I really had to talk about that as part of this book, because we've sort of put timelines on ourselves. When, what should happen, or by when things should happen. And other people really even have all this power over ourselves to feel that they have a say in it. By now, by then, you should be here, you should have done this, you should have achieved that. But then, at 30 is when I feel like shit hit the fan for me. Sorry if that is unwelcome.
Yeah.
But at 30 is when things came crumbling so hard. And I asked myself, wait a minute, I thought it was 30 when we're supposed to have it all figured out. Then when I looked at prior years of my life, I'd already published that first book, for instance. I felt like, I had already gotten things in check. I was doing fine. I'm okay. So it came to me as a surprise that at 30, I had a lot of experiences that still wrecked me. So I talked about that, and if you read further, you'll see some places where I asked people, how old are you? Where are you in life at the moment? Meet yourself right there where you are, but from a place of honesty and vulnerability, so that you're able to ask yourself the key questions and look at your life not from a lens of excuse. You remember the excuse you said we tend to fall back to, it's life, not that lightly. But look at yourself and what's happening in your life at the place you're at, and ask yourself the pertinent question. Why do I react like this? Why do I feel like this? Because you could as well be at 60 and there are things you do or you react to and they don't look your age.
Yeah.
Is there something that you might have missed along the way? Is there something you need to revisit? So for me, I addressed that topic because of those two angles. The feeling that the pressures of life and people around us feeling that at 30, and you've said it yourself, things change. I've always had these things, so I was curious. According what happens at 30, people say at 30 things get serious. Then it was not so for me. So I had asked myself those questions, and I needed to start that conversation of, hey, you could be 25, you could be 40, you could be 50. And things might not be looking as the world has said they should look, but is there something you need to look at more keenly so that you can make decisions or step out and do things differently, or allow yourself and give yourself permission to just go through life at the pace that life sometimes sets for us without the outside noise and the pressure.
You know, sometimes when you're going through a dark phase of your life, nothing makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even want advice. You don't even want somebody to explain to you something. But years later, when you look at that dark phase, sometimes, and most of the time, you tend to appreciate it because there are valuable things you picked up from that moment that made the person you are today think and reason the way you reason. That girl who was 30, there's somebody today who is listening to us or is watching us who is very uncomfortable with their age. And there is more pressure when you look around you and you see people your age or even younger who've done excellent things. When you went beyond that scare of being 30, and now today you can look back, what is it that you can tell someone today that can allow them to wake up tomorrow and face the day with confidence?
First, I will tell them that the universe is speaking to you. Pay attention, listen. And when I say the universe, I don't mean the different definitions and the noise coming from all directions of what you should be, should have done, should have been at this moment. It is, if you feel something in your gut, if you find a certain trail of behavior or habits, that if you are to be honest with yourself, they might not be leading you to where you have envisioned yourself to be. Ask yourself the tough questions. But if you're someone who is having the pressure that is coming from the external sources, then I'll just tell you, have a conversation with yourself that is true and honest, and ask yourself if the things you've set to do as part of your purpose and the things that tickle you, if you are on track, then there's no one you need to answer to. But you have to ask yourself very, 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 very honestly. Because what I realize, some of the things that I'm enjoying now, the fruits, are as a result of healing. You heal, you fix you heal what needs healing in you, and then you attract the things that were amiss in your life. That's why I said, have an honest conversation with yourself. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm just going to tell you, as I said, the only way is through it. So whatever stage you are, if you feel questions somewhere at the far back of your mind, take a moment, pause, ask yourself the honest questions, the deep, tough questions, and be honest with yourself. But then don't make a decision from a point of pressure, of fear, of to impress. Face it, step back. I usually sometimes tell people, get out of the world. Because these days we want to show everything to the world and at the face value and what. Take a moment. It's solitude that helped me, go back, close yourself in, because no one else will understand. No one. Until you're able to have those tough conversations with yourself. It's not possible.
When you're talking about addiction, which is one of the pronounced words on the cover of the book, addiction sometimes goes beyond self, where somebody has no self-control whatsoever. and they want to come back. You don't even know yourself. You're lost in whatever form of addiction. What worked for you when you realized that I'm back to that alcohol, to that partying, to that clubbing, and to that thing? What worked for you?
I would say spirituality worked for me. And I'll revisit the words, the universe is always speaking to you, pay attention. I started listening more keenly to what I was feeling when I was sober. Because when you're high in the moment, it's just high and happy. But if you are to pay attention to the nudge that is deep in your belly in the moments of soberness, there is a message that tells you this is not the way to live, this is not you, you're better than this, you're... A lot of time, and I did it. The solution is to go back and fill the cup again, go back for another night of partying, go back. But then you run dry at some point. And a lot of people who are not able to capture these now become actual addicts. Because what that was is functional. For instance, if I can point to my drug is alcohol. I won't even say was. I still take alcohol. But alcohol no longer has power over me. So you have to revisit even the lineage. I come from a lineage that I've seen people destroyed totally and do nothing with their lives because of alcohol. Nothing that makes you and me special. We can succumb to that. It just takes one moment. So what worked for me is paying attention to that voice in the moments of soberness. Because it was, a lot of us are doing it, functional alcoholism. After all, I'm fine. I'm still able to report to work. I'm still living. But if you look at the missteps, how productive are you? Like I write, read, what? I could not do much of that because what? I mostly sleep high and wake up just in, enough time to shower and get to work. So I had already stepped out of my purpose and the things that fill me up that I feel I need to give to the world because I had no time for them. It had already gone to the addictions. And one addiction feeds another. You're getting a high from this, and that moment of high results to another high and becomes a trail of things, and before you know it, you are so deep. A lot of people have to be gotten out. Lucky if you can pay attention and listen. The voice is there. The voice is there. Just listen. And if you have a background, and this is where now we define religion, spirituality, it has nothing to do with, are you religious? Do you go to church? Whether we like it or not, there's a super power, whatever you call it. I don't know what name you give it. But that voice that is in your gut, next time you're sober, pay attention to it. Don't indulge to shut it up.
Yeah.
Because it's trying to save you. It's trying to get you out. It's trying to lead you to a path where now you become exactly what? Because you're not that. You're not that addiction. And if it tells you this is a symptom of something, dig deeper, because those things, Mike, are symptoms of something. We are always running away from something. Dig deeper and find the real issue and deal with it. The only way is through it.
There's been a debate on, we are a generation of people who are weak. That's why people depend on therapy, and people talk about therapy. People have normalized inability to make decisions and to move family, and we've romanticized therapy. Looking at this journey, to Wanjiru, a specific person, at what point did you realize I needed therapy? And what did it do to you that today you can look back and say, this is what happened to me?
Allow me first to say that that's the same concept with masculinity. And that's why now there's toxic masculinity. We have made stigmatized therapy, yet I find it as a tool to heal yourself. Mike, last time you had a persevering stomachache, what did you do?
Looked for medication.
You looked for medication.
Yes.
And very persisting symptoms leads you where?
To the doctor.
To the doctor.
Yes.
The doctor has the know-how to diagnose, to treat, and you get well, right?
Yeah.
Why do we do this to our bodies, but we don't want to do it to the emotional part of us? Why don't we want to feel? We have made feelings look so wrong. Hey, she's so needy. Oh, she's so sensitive. Oh, he's very weak. Oh, we have made feelings sound so wrong. And yet, right there at the fabric of our emotion is where we draw how we show up in life. Are you a happy person? Are you a bitter person? It's mostly the emotional part. So when we are physically sick, we are keen to feel, oh, that's a headache. Oh, this is the second day with a headache. Maybe I need to see a doctor. But when we have felt a persisting sadness, when we felt a persisting trigger when someone says something, when we have cried ourselves to sleep 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, when we have snapped and slapped our wives or husbands, why don't we sit back and ask ourselves, hey, or it's not normal. It's not normal that I'm this sad. It's not normal that I cannot explain why there are always tears in my eyes. It's not normal that when I'm loved, I don't even know how to feel the love or to receive the love. And your doctor is the therapist. There is no difference. There is no difference. It's just a different name, but the doctor is meant to help you get to wellness. And the back of the work, the same way the doctor will say this is, malaria or what, just I recommend this, go take. You can choose not to. And that's not on the doctor. So that's the same way. Therapy is a resource to help us heal ourselves. And I say help us because only if we go through the process from the openness and genuinity and vulnerability that it calls for, then even such statements are just an indication that we need therapy. Yes.
Wanjiru Kaburu with us today, and author of 2 amazing books. Look for them. Where do we get these books?
The books are available on Nuria, both the hard copies and the soft copies, and those who have subscribed to Amazon Kindle, there is the digital versions.
Yeah.
Yes, and directly from me. You can reach me. I can always make arrangements to try and get it to you.
How do we find you?
I'm on platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and IG. Wanjiru Kaburu is my name everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can either DM me, and if you get a copy of my book, my contacts are on both copies, so you can directly, mostly, WhatsApp me, and we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also have a website. Actually, most of the information I got to know about you was on your website.
Yes, wanjirukaburu.com.
Wanjirukaburu.com. Ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing conversation. It's nice to interact with you, and congratulations once again for allowing us the exclusivity. Guys, this is the first interview she's had after launching her second book, Take Your Power Back. The first book was an amazing book. I read this, I brushed through this book, and I can guarantee you that it's going to trigger you in a way that you didn't see coming, because she's laid bare her life. She's spoken about things that not very many people would be comfortable talking about. But that is where this whole journey starts. Healing. What's on your shelf? What are you reading? This becomes the very last episode this year. So I want to take this early opportunity to wish you a Merry Christmas and a happy new year. But let's keep engaging on our social media platforms. We are available. What's on your shelf? On TikTok, we are What's on your shelf. On Instagram, What's on your shelf? And let's keep engaging. Let's keep talking. We'll keep sharing some of the tidbits of wealth of wisdom we've gotten from Wanjiru Kaburu here. And let's keep interacting. Interact with her. Reach out to her. And I've seen that you're a life coach. She's a life coach. Maybe there's something she's written or spoken about that you relate to. Reach out to her and have a conversation. Thank you so much for journeying with us through the episodes that we had this year. And we look forward to an exciting and beautiful year in 2024. So keep reading, keep engaging. Remember, this episode was recorded and has been done at the Kenya National Library Service in partnership with Kenya National Library Service, which is a national library service. Check out their facilities. Check out their website, Kenyan National Library Service, KNLS. And they have a digital space. Interact with it. They have a kids section with trained professionals who will be able to take care of your children anytime you're in the library. Make hangout in the library a lifestyle. See you again on the next one. I've been your host, Mulure Mike. Cheers.